Welcome back to the Marathon Mortgage Happy Hour. I'm Mike Witzak.
I'm Rory Farrell, a special guest here today. Please introduce yourself.
Tim Garrity from the Tim Garrity team at Real.
Hell yeah.
Thank you for coming in. So you do a lot of your business or work in Philly, but you happen to be in Flourtown. So when we started setting this up, I'm like, why don't you come to our office?
Yeah.
You're like, Flourtown, cool, a couple minutes away.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yep, you got it.
As you guys know, we start the first session of this is the beer section. So
Cool.
one of the few guests that have requested a specific beer, a specific style of beer, and I love that it gives me some direction on what we should go for, and this isn't something that we typically do. So originally you said Sequence from Dogfish Head, which is local to Delaware. It's more of like a margarita style sour, like a light sour, more like a commercial sour that's more palatable by most people. And I said, well, if you're into that, let me pull something out of my cellar.
Yeah.
And I tried to find something similar. So Paradox Beer Company out of Colorado, they have a series called the Scully Barrel Series. This is the number 29 sour red ale brewed with tamarind and lime peel. So
Where in Colorado?
put me on the spot here. Divide, Colorado.
I don't know that one.
I don't know.
My wife's from the Denver, Colorado area. as I
Okay.
told you earlier,
Okay.
Well,
so
someone get on Google.
I have some familiarity with the CO area.
But yeah, the Colorado is good sours. They do a couple like Charles.
It's a good beer state.
It's a very good beer state. There you go.
So if your wife's from Colorado, did you meet her out there? Did she come here?
Actually,
How'd
I
that work
did meet her out there. I used to work through Pulte Homes, which again, shout out to John Baker
What
for
a
the intro.
great what a great intro. You're a
So I worked for
professional.
Pulte Homes. I was in the mortgage department.
Okay.
And was in management because Pulte was built up of like different metro areas all over the U.S.
Yeah.
So I worked for the greater Philadelphia market, and we only had a team of about 4. But my wife worked at the headquarters of Pulte out in the Denver, Colorado area. So
Yep.
she was basically a loan officer, an originator. And I was out there for like a week of training. We met in a training class. Next thing I knew, we're talking to each other every day, dating long distance. And a little less than a year later,
Wow.
took a one-way flight out to Colorado, packed up her entire life, hitched her car, and drove her to Philly.
Whoa.
Damn.
That's heavy.
That's some hardcore stuff.
So from the time that you guys met to the time that you were crossing country together,
Less than a year.
less than a year. Whew, man. My wife made me wait 2 years before she moved to California. We did long distance for 2 years, and she was like, "No, we'll see. We'll see how this goes."
And the story is too. So she moved here in 2006. So, wow. So she's been here for about 18 years.
Yeah, she's a PA girl now.
She is.
Yeah.
How does she like it? Does she like Philly? I mean, you
does.
guys were in Philly for a while, so
Yeah.
she got to actually see Philly turn into Philly.
Absolutely. So when we first started dating, let's cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
cheers.
I'm cheersing to this. I want to try this.
Smell it first to get that
Oh, wow. Yeah.
lime, citrusy, fruity, and it's aged in white wine barrels, oak barrels.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this is a 2015.
Ooh, yeah, that's got
I
a
wanna
little
say.
tart.
2015, yeah. No,
Where'd you score that?
I think
Locally?
actually,
or?
yeah, this is local, or not that it's local. You
Yeah.
can get it locally. I think it may have got it at a Whole Foods,
Nice.
but
Damn.
Good stuff. I like it.
Yeah, it's good. I do actually
this
like
is
it.
much
I'm not a
more
big
mellow
sours
than it
fan.
probably was 9 years ago when it was first bottled. So one of the cool things to do with sours is take a sip instead of just sipping it, drinking it. Let it sit in your mouth underneath your tongue, and you get all these other crazy flavors, and it like hits different parts of your tongue. It's pretty interesting. You get a whole
Rory,
different.
beer pro, man.
What a nerd.
Spoken like a true cocktail dude.
Yeah,
Well, how about this? Try it. Tell me I'm wrong.
No. You're right. I kept it in my mouth when I originally did it.
So Mike is not
pause.
Mike's not a beer guy. And when we started this, he was like only Corona. And now, I mean, I've built your palate. You've learned a couple things that you like.
But he's like, oh yeah, no, I'm into IPAs. I'm like, what the fuck's an IPA?
Yeah, I can't.
What do you mean it's a 4-pack?
IPA's not my thing. I mean, I'll drink anything. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
IPAs to me, it's just that pininess is just too much. Plus, the alcohol content's always so much stronger for a beer.
I wonder what
I've actually nowadays, if we're talking about what we drink, I've become more of a wine drinker probably since COVID.
Oh, nice.
And I just had more wine on hand. You know, you couldn't really run out and do stuff in the beginning. So I was just crushing wine at home. And now,
and everyone was crushing whatever they had at home.
pretty much. Yeah. And you're
Yeah.
like, do you deliver? Because if you do, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take whatever you have.
Yeah.
We live not far from Jersey, just right over the bridge, and we were going to Jersey because they had different rules than Pennsylvania
exactly.
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, PA was screwed up for a while.
Did you
So-
just admit to smuggling alcohol across state lines?
Yeah,
Rory?
I think you did.
Feds are watching, dude.
Oh, we may have to
I think the
may have
statute
to
of
talk to
limitations is
someone.
okay.
Yeah.
But now I'm glad that you suggested something a little different. I always look forward to pulling something out of the cellar. Just
Very
need a
good.
reason to. So,
Thank you.
all right, cool. So we left off
Talking
wife,
about
Pulte.
wife, yep.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is Pulte. You started in mortgages. And this is gonna be like a multi-tiered question, but why did that drive you to real estate? And also being in Pulte, we go up against a lot of builders,
Yep.
mortgage guys, and
Yeah, we dominated when I was at Pulte.
I'm
Pulte
sure.
Mortgage crushed it, like 95% capture.
I'm sure, yeah, and that's always our biggest, struggle, because like trying to figure out what they're offering and how can we match it, or how can we like decipher what they're actually offering. And I'm sure Pulte was great. There's other companies out there that are a little bit more deceiving or don't have loan officers that are kind of up to speed. They just like kind of get business fed at them. So.
Yep.
Was that awesome? It feels like it would be awesome. And then also
was, yeah.
how did you kind of manage that?
Yeah, so Pulte, I started out 2 years as a street loan officer for JP Morgan Chase.
Mm-hmm.
I worked out of an office out of Bluebell.
Okay.
And again, that was like 100% commission, just going out, shaking hands, meeting real estate agents, coming in with like when I did it with paper rate sheets, which we did back then.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, here's where everything is today. Here are the programs I got going on.
Yep.
By the way, how the kids, how the wife,
Yeah.
any vacation,
Coffees for closers.
Yeah, you're building rapport to let people know that you care.
Yeah.
And what year was this?
This is like 2002.
Damn. This is how old are you?
Yeah, man, I'm 45.
Wait,
Damn, good for you, dog. I thought you were in like your mid 30s, maybe. You're
yeah.
like 2002.
and by the fact that he said "damn dog, good for you," you could tell that he was born shortly prior to you starting.
Exactly. He was getting like his diaper changed, and I'm handing out rate sheets.
Yeah, it kind of was. I was 3 years old in 2010. So.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Started out as a street loan officer. Did well with that, and then basically one of the real estate agents I used to see like every week saw something in me. He didn't give me any deals, which this is a good lesson for everyone.
Let's hear it.
When you're in this business, everyone thinks it's about deals. So you guys are in mortgages, you meet a real estate agent. How can we do deals? The other thing you can do is build relationships and introduce each other to other people, because that might produce the deals from that relationship versus the deal from the relationship itself.
Sure.
Very true.
But it's hard. It's hard to do. That's what we're trained to do in sales. And so long story short, met a real estate agent, never gave me a deal. One day I walked in and said, my wife works for Pulte, which I had never heard of, and said, would you be interested in talking to her? They're looking for a young manager. So I was 24. I interviewed, got the job. It was very hard. Pulte was a hard company to break into. And I just cut my teeth, virtually managing people from the Denver office in Colorado, which again, that's how I met my wife. We weren't on the same team, but that's where I met her. And I lost my job when everything happened, like 2008. Was offered a promotion. They wanted me to move. I said, I'm a Philly boy. I'm not going anywhere. So 2 months later, I got laid off.
Damn.
And it was just such a good lesson, because it was probably the first time in my professional career where I'd said, this is where I want to be. So that was like step one.
From an industry standpoint in mortgages? Yeah. Okay.
Like Pulte was one of those companies. I could have moved all over the country, made tons of money.
Yep.
Short period of time. Come back at 35 if I wanted to, and write my ticket wherever I want in corporate America. So that was kind of the path. I just really stood up for the fact that I just wanted to stay here and build something.
Yeah.
And then once they said, well, if you're not going to say hi when we tell you to jump, we don't want you, then I got laid off. It allowed me to think about, well, why did I get laid off? And I got laid off because I'm not your corporate boy.
Yeah.
That just was a good lesson. And that's how I got into real estate. So
You just wanted to be your own boss.
just wanted to be my own boss. I think too, I looked at it as like, 2008, we had a division locally of 400 people between the builder, the mortgage, the title, like design center.
Wow.
When I got laid off, we were down to 40. So we laid off 90% of our workforce in a span of like 18 months. And I just looked at that. I'm like, am I going to put all my eggs in this basket and like do whatever these guys tell me to do to potentially lose my job the next cycle?
Yeah.
Or a year from now? It's like, I didn't know what was going to happen.
And what did you think protected you from being in the mortgage industry versus, hey, I'm going to do something in an adjacent industry, but do it on my own? Like maybe there's another downturn and maybe real estate goes bad. Like right now, what were you confident in and saying, hey, even if I'm in real estate and there's a downturn, how am I going to continue to move forward and not get downsized?
I think there were two things. One was as a street loan officer, stopping into real estate offices, meeting agents, seeing people who are successful, I kind of was like interested in that. I'm like, what are these people doing? Like half of them aren't even in the office. Like they're making
Speaking our
tons of money.
language
Like they're coming in back then dressed like casual. I'm like, who does this?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It just seemed cool. And then when I was at Pulte, they were constantly asking me like, do you want to get into sales here and sell homes to the communities? The number one reason I didn't want to do that is I had to be there Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And at the time of my life, I'm like, I'm like my mid-20s. I'm not trying to be at a community like all day Saturday. I'm trying to get to the shore, hang out with friends. And, you know, I think I saw those two things. And then when I got out, I was like, well, do I just want to go work for another builder? Or, you know, like Marathon, do I want to go work for another lender? Or do I want to get into real estate? And I think the more I researched it, real estate to me just seemed a little bit more entrepreneurial. Like, you know, eat what you kill, sky's the limit, be good with people, you know, be patient. You know, you got to love real estate, which I do. You got to be interested in meeting people and dealing with all their nonsense, which I actually love that. I mean, people think I'm nuts, but like I look at it as just helping people. I'm a patient guy, and if I can help you, I'm going to help you. So that's what really
Keeps you on your toes too, you know?
Absolutely.
That's the reason I asked though about 2002, because I was thinking, like going in with these rate sheets and whatnot. I went to offices for the first 2 years of doing this, and it's like I think I maybe saw 10 realtors.
And you're starting at a completely different time.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like such a different world than it was back then. But
Or even like 3 or 4 years ago prior to COVID, you would see more realtors in, but yeah. So
crazy.
But shoot, I was just gonna ask you something.
What's on your little note sheet?
I got a couple notes. So where do you want to go next? We got
I have
talk
some
about your
questions,
podcast,
too.
about Copper Hill versus
we can
Real.
talk about-
What is that?
We could talk about podcasts.
Yeah, get
So
on the podcast.
That's something I started fall of last year. Me and one of my best friends, Sean Mooney, with Mooney Insurance Brokers. What's up, man?
We'll plug it before people tune out. Plug it. What's it called? Where can they find it?
Yeah. So it's called Bricks and Risk. You can find it Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, you know, iHeartRadio, all these places. I never knew how many different places people listen to podcasts.
Yeah,
Some people like paying for them. Some people want them for free.
Yep.
So Bricks and Risk started last fall because I had the entrepreneurial background in real estate, started a brokerage from scratch, grew that successfully for 10 years with partners. My friend Sean has been in insurance for about 20 years, and he started his own insurance brokerage from scratch about 12 years ago with no partners. So he was solo, I was with a group, which kind of segues. So unfortunately, at the end of last year, one of my partners said he wasn't interested in the partnership anymore. So then we had to figure out, okay, how do we figure this out with the company?
Sure.
And after multiple discussions, trying to figure out, I mean, I wish him the best, but we just weren't on the same page. And then my brother Ryan and I were the other two partners, and we knew we were going to keep working together. So we said, I think at this point it makes the most sense to just sunset the brand.
Okay.
And for us to just go off on our own with our own team at a different place. So, hey, I could do it again. I could be nuts and start a brokerage again from scratch, which I really wasn't interested in doing. Or I could take advantage of some of the new models that have kind of popped up over the last 10 years. You know, COVID changed the model a lot. As you said, people aren't in the office anymore. And I found a lot of similarities and commonalities with Real. And a lot of people don't know Real around the Philly area. They're kind of new.
I know them well.
Years.
Yeah, I got a couple people who we work with locally
So
probably a lot of the same people that you connect with locally.
Yeah, so I kind of like discovered them over just reading like Inman News and stuff last couple of years.
Yeah.
So when I had this opportunity again to kind of rethink my career, which is like, it's bringing back the days of Pulte, I decided I think this is exactly where I need to be. It's super collaborative, not competitive like most brokerages.
Yep.
They're virtual, which is how I ran my brokerage for 10 years. And, you know, it just made a ton of sense. So again, with the podcast, we started last fall, and me and Sean are like, all right, let's build up a ton of content because we don't ever want to like fall behind kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like we want to do this once a week. So we built up about 20 episodes before we released one.
Holy shit.
Man.
Yeah. So we like just banked like a ton of content. And it's like funny, like as we're doing this, I'm going through everything with Copper Hill. So like we have episodes that we're still releasing now where I'm like, I'm still with Copper Hill.
Yeah, I was saying, did you have to scrap anything?
No,
Luckily,
because honestly, like, you know, right around that same time was kind of when we were like looking into figuring out the partnership. And, you know, I just knew, again, I have a ton of respect for people. Like if someone wants to go a different way and it affects the partnership and the brand that we had, like more power to you. Like I don't have an issue with that. So for me, I just looked at it as like what I can control is what I do myself. And it was just like the timing of the podcast, like starting a team, real, like all these different things in my life. Like I've only been in the burbs now for about 3 years. And I don't know, it just all put me in the spot I'm in today. And it's like I wake up every day. It's just so easy, stress-free. 18 of the agents came with me.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so it's like we got a really good team, really good group at Real, and I still practice every day.
Hell yeah.
I was gonna say too, even like early 20s, where your career started in a different industry, all of these like little pivots that you did led you to this and being like adaptable and like, hey, I wasn't ready for 2008. I wasn't ready to switch to the real estate, all that. And you're like, hey, I'm just gonna go for it, And it sounds like that probably happened with your partnership dissolving. It's like, all right, how can I fix this? How can I make this work for me?
One way I've always looked at it, I like to use the word parlay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got into mortgages, I'm a street loan officer. I did that for a couple of years. I parlayed that into a management position in mortgage. Then when I did all that, okay, now I have like 8-9 years of experience. I parlayed all that industry knowledge into real estate.
Yep.
So when I got into real estate, it's like I've been in this business for 8-9 years, even though I'm new. So I kind of wasn't new. And
you
then,
have that unique position of being able to explain the mortgage side of things to buyers, which
was a big
realtors,
advantage
new
back
realtors
then.
can't. Yeah.
15 years ago, you just couldn't find all this information online.
No.
Like you didn't have podcasts, you didn't have YouTube,
You didn't have TikTok.
right?
All the valuable information.
Instagram. I mean, you scroll. And you
all the
learn
house
something
hacks
new.
on Instagram that people call me about.
Yeah. So it really just it's all just been a series of, like you said, different pivots, but all in the same lane of I want to be in the real estate industry and I want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And that's really what led me to where I am today.
Killer.
Yeah, it's cool to see people's path. And I don't know if we've ever had anyone on that was a mortgage. I don't think anyone from the mortgage side of things, even though they really.
I think we have. I think. Oh my God! Why? No, Jeff was an insurance broker.
No, he's insurance. Yeah,
He was an insurance broker. Yeah, I'm trying to think. There has to be one other person. I'm telling you, there's another person. Somebody's like coming up to
This
my
is a
mind.
bag and beer, by the way.
Yeah, this is
Very good.
I must admit, very good.
All right, cool. Wait until you see what's at the bottom of this barrel or bottom of this bottle. So
It's just a bunch of garbage.
So
Yeah,
and that's good. That's yeast. That's leftover yeast. So the interesting part about things that you sell are that are
leftover. What are you gonna do with that?
You can throw it away. You don't drink it. It'll
Thank
make you
God.
sick.
I was gonna say.
Like I'm gonna
basically-
clean my teeth with it. What do you think I'm gonna do?
He was saying that like there's a bunch of leftover yeast here. We're gonna use this for
No,
something.
I was going to point out a beer thing is like when there's leftover yeast in a bottle like that, it continues to evolve and grow and
No way.
create alcohol from 2015 to now. So
Damn.
this, when it was bottled, was probably
2015.
All right, so I got a question for you, Rory. How the hell did you get so into beer?
So when I lived in California, I ran a craft beer restaurant for 8 of those years, about 8 of those years. No, I shouldn't say that. 6 or 7 of those years. And then from there, I parlayed that into
Love
a sales job. I was the Northern California sales manager for specifically one brewery. So, and I've always homebrewed and I was just into it. San Diego, where I lived, was like the mecca for craft beer in America back then. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was Colorado, San Diego, parts of like like parts of Maine, but like really the Pacific Northwest. But those like couple,
Yeah, sure.
Portland, Seattle. So
You came up with it like big time. Like I feel like when you just were able to start drinking, like craft beer became a thing. So you like
I moved to California.
He's the pioneer.
When I was 22 or 23.
Genuinely.
Trendsetter.
Genuinely.
So and then I'm just interested in craft and local and the process of making it and all that stuff. So that's how I know all that.
Awesome, man.
So
I had a question real quick. If we could circle back to the
circle back.
podcast. Yeah. Back to the podcast.
he's
Listen,
been itching. I already
Listen,
know where
I'm
this is
itching.
going.
You know exactly where this is going. Ryan Serhant. Give me the tea. How the hell did this happen?
Oh, did you actually listen to the episode?
Yeah, dude.
What'd you think, by the way?
It killed, dude. I've always so I've read his books. I've followed him since like forever ago when he had $1 million listings, all this stuff. And then Rory's like, yeah, we're gonna have this guy coming on the podcast. And I'm like, all right, let me check him out. And I'm like, dude, this motherfucker has Serhant. I'm like, who the fuck? I'm like, who's this guy?
Yeah, that was a big move.
Yeah. So how did this all like transpire? Like, how did that get started? Where you're like, you get this podcast going, you have 20 episodes. Was he banked, by the way?
He was banked. Yeah.
Okay. So, did you just know him? Like, was there something
Well, I'll give you 2 things. So there's 2 ways you talk to someone like Ryan Serhant.
Yep.
One, you pay him, which we did not do. or 2, you earn your right to speak with them.
Yes.
And the story of that was I went to, it was like a broker open event at the Laurel in Rittenhouse Square. It's
Yes.
a high rise.
Yeah.
You know, that
And he was there, right? Or
he
no?
was there.
Yep.
So I went in and, you know, he's doing his little speech. There's like 100 people huddled around him. And it's a celebrity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And was saying some really cool things. I'm like listening. I'm like, man, how do I meet this dude? So then we're going through, listening to all the stuff. And then he's like, oh, if anyone wants to get shots for like Instagram, blah, 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 I'm going to stand in front of this banner and you can just line up, talk to me. And I was like, I'm freaking lining up. So I get in the line and everyone's like taking pictures, you know, doing that. And I went up, shook his hand, grabbed a picture and said, hey, man, I know you're new to Philly. I'm a local guy. So if you ever need anything in and around Philly, just give me a call, shoot me a text or an email. Mm-hmm. He's like, awesome. He's like, cool. Just reach out to my team. I was like, okay. So then that was step 1.
Yes.
Step 2 was his team reached out to me before they were really formulated in Philadelphia yet and said, hey, if we ever get a Pennsylvania deal, would you like a referral? I'm like, hell yeah.
Who's going to say no to that?
And yeah, they actually,
No, thank you.
I only got about one deal, which was still great, prior to them really blossoming in Philadelphia. So then they didn't need me anymore.
Yeah,
So I
right,
worked for Serhant. And then after that, at Copper Hill, one of my agents was like, yo, I have a client for like in and around Manhattan. Do you know anyone? I was like, we're going with
Boom.
Serhant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we referred the business up there, you know, again, you know, $1 million deal. So we got a good referral fee on it. So then when Sean and I were building the podcast and we're talking about like guests, it's like most of it's like local and, you know, we got our topical episodes. And I was like, I'm going to get Ryan Serhant. And he was like,
He's like, get out of here.
no, you're not. I was like, I feel like I'll have an opportunity to at least reach out and say why I think it's valuable for him to be on our podcast, which again, it's like half our videos get like 5 views.
Yeah.
It's like nothing.
Especially in the beginning, it's like hard to justify that, right?
I mean, it takes years to build up, build up an audience. So I sent an email to his team and I said, look, here are the 3 things I want to talk about, which are going to build up his business in Philadelphia. And he can just use our podcast as a platform. And then he responded to that email. Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's book it. I was like, sweet.
Killer.
Sometimes shooters just got to shoot, and
You just got to shoot.
I mean, you had a
like
similar
right
situation.
now, Ryan, come on the podcast.
It's
Benefits
your next
are,
spot in Philly.
this is it. Yeah, I'm the sexiest man in Philadelphia, and you'll get to be on my podcast. That's about it.
Oh, I love it.
He was like itching. He's like, how do I?
So that was the legit story. Like,
Yeah.
I just earned it. Again, I think it goes back to the real estate thing. It's like when I work with purpose. I don't just like work and sling deals and like, hey, I just made all this money. Like, we all want to make money. Like, we're in business to make money. That's what we're doing. But we have the added privilege of being in a market like Philadelphia where people are generational and they respect relationships here.
Yep.
Like, there's history, there's pride. You know, people stay in their homes here for 30, 40, 50 years. Like, you know, I just helped my buddy from high school's parents like sell their house. They were there for 50 years.
Yeah.
Like, I used to swim in their pool in high
That's
school.
cool. That's a cool like personal story too. It like, feels good to help those people.
So I feel like in general, I'm just the school of thought. Again, you can build your business off of cold calls, you know, postcards, just reaching out to people. Like, you can do all that stuff, but you kind of have to be dialed into that to do it. Like, if you like the cold method, you got to like do that every day.
Every day, all day, yeah.
Dedicated time.
Yeah.
If you're into the warm method, which is what I'm, and people are like, well, what am I supposed to do every day
Yeah.
to do that? It almost seems like, well, I do that anyway. It's like, but not enough to build your business off of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a thing that I've been building over the last year. It's called the Book of Business System.
Okay.
That I was in the process of training my team on when I shifted my team. So it will be coming back out, but it's really everything I've done in my professional career to get to this point where I have those relationships for like decades ago. And that's how I build my business. And that's the kind of thing I want to start teaching people either on an individual basis or just bringing it into my podcast. And people are getting these little nuggets. They're like, oh, wow, that was a really good piece of advice. And it seems obvious, but it really isn't. It's just a matter of focusing on it.
Yeah. I mean, he's been like itching since we booked this thing.
We had him on, and we got him on because I just called him. I was just
Nice.
I didn't think I was calling him. I was like, you know.
Kind of like your Serhant story. You're like, I'll reach out to the team.
Right?
Yeah. So I was like, I just Googled his name, and I saw the number, and I'm like, all right, I'll call the number. I'll see if I could like get an appointment to talk to him or something, and just like kind of pitch the idea to him because I see all the shit he's doing on social media. I'm like, I mean, I'm giving you free content. Like, just take my clips,
Right.
throw them wherever you want, like do whatever you want with them.
You'll edit them. You'll,
Yeah,
produce
I'll do
them, all
everything.
that.
Like,
Like,
give you a hard time when you called him, or was he pretty receptive?
he was really nice. He has been really nice since I've known him, actually. Like, I thought his persona on the internet's very like,
a hard ass.
Yeah, like a hard ass. Like, I'm getting business done, doing this. But then I call him, he picks up, oh, hello, this is Joe. And I was like, oh shit. Like, he's not expecting.
Hold on a second, I'm drinking a sour.
Exactly, yeah.
Ugh, okay.
So then I kind of like pitched him like really loosely the idea, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. When do you want to do it? And I'm like, next Wednesday. He's like, cool. Puts it in the calendar.
Very cool.
And yeah, we went over there. We
I think
did
we
that.
did it like 2 days later. It was like 2 or 3 days
oh,
later.
yeah, it wasn't next Wednesday. It was that Wednesday, yeah.
He called me. He's like, are you free Wednesday? I'm like, yeah, why? He's like, we're going to Brokerage. I was like,
Nice.
all right, let's
oh,
do
you
it.
guys did it there.
Yeah. I mean, we try and make it. I mean, we would have came to you too. Like,
Yeah.
we try and make it as easy as possible
cool.
for people to say yes to come on.
So like if Serhant wanted to come on, I'd be like, dude, we'll come down.
we'll go to the
be
city.
in Manhattan tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Genuinely. So that's like how that worked. And then we had him on, and that episode did great. You know what I mean? We got our reels are like our main source of views or traction, but
Very cool.
those reels get a couple.
He
like
reposted
3,000
them
to
on
4,000 views. Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, let me ask this. So, with you guys doing this, why did you start doing this? Like, what was the purpose?
I mean, so the idea was Rory's idea. Rory came to me and was like, yo, let's do a podcast. I was making videos like just myself, like about.
I think that was the era of you doing like daily vlogs.
Yeah,
right?
like here's mortgage insurance, here's this, here's that. Because like I just
Like
want to
educating people.
Yeah, like I just went to business. So I'm like, how do I get started in this business?
Smart.
And how do I get realtors? Like nobody's at offices, nobody's doing anything. I'm like, social media is like what I knew. So then he came to me. He's like, "You want to do a podcast?" I'm like, "Podcasts are stupid as hell. Everybody does a podcast. We shouldn't do it." And he's like, "But is
there's
it?"
video involved?
He's like, "Is it hard to do though?" And I'm like, "No, it's easy. We could do it if you want to do it." And he's like, "Yeah." So then,
And this is 1.5 years ago, so it was like even slower. Like it was like,
yeah.
so we're like, what else are we doing? You know? And one of my goals in 2023 was, hey, business is slow, so I'm not going to do a ton of volume. Like, how do I get in front of people more often? And how do I provide value? And like you're saying, like you might not be getting deals from those people, but you're building a relationship here. And we couldn't go to settlements anymore, which we tend to do. Which is how we meet realtors, how we meet listing agents, how we, meet our clients and get referrals.
It's where you build a rapport.
Yeah. So because you guys take people out constantly, we don't get to see them until the settlement.
Exactly.
So I'm like, we were constantly fighting for deals and trying to like prove to people that, hey, we're trustworthy, we're local, all that stuff. So, and we couldn't get in front of them in person. So I said, let's start a podcast. So that, and it will be casual. I mean, as this is, it's like we're free flowing. I'm a big beer guy. Like, let's make it fun in the beginning.
Yep.
Let's be able to like show people who we are. Cause my favorite podcasts are the ones where it's just a couple of comedians sitting on the couch, like, and you get to know them and you feel like you know all about them.
Yeah. They're just being themselves.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted from this is like, if people don't glean anything from it, except for, hey, these are real people,
Right.
then that's all I really wanted.
Yeah.
If they get nuggets of information or if we bring in cool people and like, they learn about real estate or your story, even better.
Yeah,
like,
we didn't even bring people on in the beginning. We did the first.
You're doing like just the two of you chatting.
Yeah, just chatting about like we would do, instead of it being like us talking now, it would just be us like educating something that happened that week. So like, hey, seller credits are this, or VA loans can do this.
Or I ran into this week and it was interesting. Maybe this will help you. Like, so.
And we did that for the first, however many episodes, and then start getting realtors on.
Yeah, we just released our 25th episode, and it was Eric Simon from BAM. So
we saw that one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We just saw that pop up. That's why I was like, who is this guy? So we were looking at BAM. Yeah.
So what is BAM?
BAM's legit. So basically, he got.
Well, we saw how many followers there. You were impressed with.
Yeah.
He caught fire during quarantine. So he was an agent in LA, wasn't doing very well. And he's kind of like a self-deprecating kind of guy. So he'd start taking videos of himself. He's like, this is what it's like to be an unsuccessful agent.
Yeah.
Which is way more the reality.
90%, yeah.
And so he started doing these videos and like memes and stuff like that and blog posts and it just like caught fire. And then he met a partner. His name's Byron Lazine. And Byron's also kind of like a big authority like social media, like in the real estate world. YouTube, does interviews, has multiple podcasts. He's like a beast.
Killer.
So the two of them got together and started BAM. And what BAM does now, instead of all the comedy, which isn't really valuable, like it was funny and entertaining.
Yeah, got eyeballs on it.
Exactly. Yeah. They took that and they turned that into more like BAM X is really where they keep all their educational content. So they'll tell you like, cool. Here are some hacks to like, get more followers on Instagram, or here's a way to like look at your listing presentation a little different, or, do this with a buyer client and turn it into content. So they go from more like the marketing standpoint, but more through social media. That's kind of their bag.
It's really cool.
So
Yeah,
check them
it's
out.
such a different thing now than it was even a couple of years ago, which is another thing. It's like, how do we get clips? How do we get, and then how do we get in front of realtors? We talked about going into offices, like no one's there, but you were willing to come on. We've met more realtors through Instagram and this podcast than we ever would have going into offices. So
I think this is a good platform for, again, you're just building relationships.
Exactly. We don't see many deals. It's not like we see, like, it's not like, oh, we have like people on and we get like 40 deals out of it. No, it's like, but I know Joe Bograd, who gave me Mike McCann's number, who, can connect me with all these other people. It's like, it just continues to roll on to that way. It's like, if I'm not getting deals out of it, who cares? Like, I'm just meeting new people, and that's what this is all about.
And it's fun and easy.
Yeah, it's killer.
And then we get to provide, hopefully, you with value. Like, hey, we'll cut up a bunch of clips that you don't have to worry about. And then if you like them, like technical stuff, production,
I'll just
post,
say,
edits, cuts.
if you're listening or watching to this and you're not from Philly, it's hot as hell out today.
Yes.
That's what happened.
Yeah, we had a little power outage. But
Rory started punching me. I had to cut it, and I'll be editing it.
Why did you say that? I told you not to say that.
Yeah,
not on air. So there was one more thing that I wanted to cover with you. I have all my notes, and we covered a lot of it here. So thanks for entertaining this. But
of course,
Copper Hill, you started, did it for about 10 years. You said split off, and now you're with Real.
Yep.
Right? You would even mention, I don't know if it was on air or before. You're like, oh, maybe you don't know about Real. I work with a couple people from Real, and close connection with some of those people, especially up in Bucks County. Why Real? Like, what's cool about them? Because it seems cool. I'll tell you that. Like, everything online, all their social media, it seems up and coming, interesting,
they're
cool,
a hot topic
collaborative.
Right
So, but that might just be because of the people that I follow who. So, pitch it. I want to hear why you chose them and what do you like about them. And
so here's a great way to like understand Real. So like when I started Copper Hill, believe it or not, 10 years ago, every office still dealt with paper files.
I believe
again, you were doing a deal. They were like, okay, here's the checklist. You have to put all these things in order. You got to print them out. You got to do all this. Like even when I started in real estate 15 years ago, I had to get everything ink signed.
Yep.
And I'd scan it, and then I had to email it to someone or to a hard drive, an external hard drive. Like all this stuff we take for granted now, it wasn't like that before. So when we started 10 years ago, and we were kind of like paperless and virtual, like no one was really doing anything like that. And we were like a small independent brokerage.
Yeah.
Well, Real came out the same year as Copper Hill, which is interesting. Came out in 2014, and everyone knows EXP. EXP is a fairly big brand around here now in the Philadelphia market. I think EXP is maybe like 80 or 90,000 agents now.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Real has been around for 10 years. Up until a few years ago, they only had maybe about like 5,000. Nationwide. Mm-hmm. Now they're up to about 20.
I was going to say, I saw 19 or something the other day someone posted. So
I think, in my opinion, the two leaders in the market right now for more of that virtual model, entrepreneurial model, built on teams, the agent is the brand, not the brokerage. How do we support that kind of agent? Are EXP and Real. Those are the two leading models nationally. EXP, to me, nothing against them, but it's still more that old school competitive market where they like pin people against each other.
Yeah.
And the teams are like in silos where they're like, your silo's over here, like don't share anything with that silo. Like the silos compete against each other.
Huh, that's weird.
And those models are based on if you bring people in, they become part of like what's called your downline. Like that's what they call it. I just look at they're part of your network. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Even when I ran Copper Hill, okay, they were part of my downline because I was making money off of them. They're just part of my team. They're part of my network.
yeah, sure.
So with Real, when I was looking into the models, they just seem much more collaborative, forward thinking. And I think what they did, because they didn't grow like EXP, they were watching them to see like, what are they doing right? But most importantly, what are they doing wrong?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I think some of the faults that they made growing as fast as they did, Real was very calculated about it. And now they're starting to grow quicker because I feel like it's more of a collaborative, forward thinking team model rather than a siloed model.
Interesting.
And that's kind of the way I ran my brokerage. I'm like, look, we're all on the same team here. And I had 3 different teams at Copper Hill. So I had 3 different teams going on. I had me as the broker and people under me, which we didn't technically have a team. They're just part of my brokerage. So we had all these teams, but we all worked together. Like we weren't competing. I wasn't saying, oh, this team's number 1 or that team's number 1. I was just like, do you want to work my open house? They're like, yeah, why don't you work mine in 2 weeks?
Cool.
Like,
Perfect.
hey, you want to sit in on a training Zoom, and everyone will jump on it.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's good stuff. And then also, like, with my background at Copper Hill, when I came to Real, they said, would you be willing to teach and train some of the things you did at Copper Hill to anyone and everyone at Real? And I said, I would love that. I'd love a bigger platform because I just love to teach. And it set the tone. They're like, it's all about the greater good. It's not about Tim Garrity team and his squad being number one.
Yeah.
It's about how can you benefit the 20,000 other people that are with this company.
That's cool.
So
That's like you and McCann talked about that on your podcast, but like how there's enough for everybody. Like we look at that the same way in this office too. It's like there's plenty for everybody.
Abundance. Yeah.
It's like, get what you got to get, but at the same time, like help each other out. It's like, it doesn't all have to go to you or somebody else. Yeah. So that's nice.
And with you being younger too, and kind of like being relatively new in this industry, I think for you looking at the collaborative approach and even through this podcast, like, you could throw a happy hour and say, bring all the podcast people to the happy hour, and we'll just buy them a couple beers.
There you go.
You know what I mean? And then
That's a cool idea.
And then you throw in a couple mics at the happy hour, and you're like, oh, we're gonna get a couple.
I think Tim just wants a happy hour, but like, I kind of also just want one too.
I like this sour beer. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I got a couple like that.
I got a couple other Paradox Scully barrels.
I think that's the way I just look at it. Again, with my teaching method, with Book of Business, and me trying to like turn that into something.
Yeah.
I look as like take every opportunity you have and look, how can you expand that to other people so that they get value out of it? And one of my biggest secrets that I've been doing since I've been in this business is a monthly email newsletter. People are like, well, people do those. I'm like, yeah, but they don't do it every month for 15 years. And if they do,
consistency is key.
And it's probably not as high quality as what I'm doing. Not to toot my own horn. I'm just saying I put a ton of thought, a ton of time. I've missed a couple months, but in 15 years, I barely missed anything. And that is really the key of the types of things that I teach. Like, just do something simple, but do it well and never stop, and you'll get business.
Yeah. Well, that's it. With this podcast, it's like, again, we're growing it, quote unquote. Maybe not as quickly as we'd like, but like, hey, it's easy and it's fun. And
no, I like this. This is a really cool.
Keep going. And
yeah, maybe you have like thoughts of growth on it, but like I never had. I swear to God, this power goes out again. I listen to the lights flicker. I never had thoughts of this, like even going to the point it has gone to. Yeah. I think it's bigger than we thought it was going to be. And like now we get, on average, our reels get 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 views.
That's fantastic.
A video. Yeah. So it's like, I know expectations of it getting here. So if it goes even further, great. Like, hell yeah. Like,
and just think about how many guys, like, let's say this takes us an hour and you edit it for another hour. It's like, what could we have done in 2 hours to get 4,000 eyeballs on whatever we were doing that to it? Like nothing. So, and it's fun. It's easy.
Yeah,
so
it's cool.
But going back to like your collaborative thing with Real, it's like, not only are you going to build business that way in the long run, but you're also going to build like a team that you want to work with. And that's how Tom, and really prior to that, Bob, who started this company, has set the tone of, you want to work together, you want to learn from each other, you want to help each other out. And in the long run, it's going to be a great place to work and everyone's going to be successful.
Yeah.
So I think that's
just link your arms and everyone can learn something from everyone else and you'll all do better because of that. So
that's a great way to end.
Yeah.
There you go.
Anything you want to add?
Any wins?
Oh, we know. Shoot, any wins? Oh,
wins? Let me see. I'd say probably one of my biggest wins and one of my biggest lessons learned from that partnership was the fact that it didn't define who I was. And when I had to go tell over 30 agents individually that we're closing the company in less than a month, and I had to lay off 3 employees, my employees said to me, well, it's unfortunate to hear that, but what can we do to help you close it down? That's what they said to me. So to me, that's about treating people right.
Yeah.
And then also the wins was, of all the people I talked to, 18 decided to come with me because of the relationship and because it didn't matter. I could go to EXP, Real, Compass, Remax. I could go to Century 21. People are like, what are you, nuts? Nothing against Century 21. It's just a little old school. But they probably would have came with me even if I did that too. So I'd say the biggest win recently was really in making that shift and knowing that people valued the relationship more than they did where I was going for a brokerage.
That's cool.
Killer.
Thanks, man.
Nice. Do you have a win?
I could throw one together.
It's up to you. We don't have to.
I'll throw it just because it literally happened in the last hour prior to Tim coming on, but slow month. May was killer. Maybe that's my win because we haven't done a podcast in real time since May.
Oh, yeah,
We
yeah.
had a bunch of banked, but May was a killer month. June, I'm like, you know how this business is.
Yeah.
Roller coaster.
Oh.
I'm like, what happened in May that's not happening
When
in
it
June?
rains, it pours, and again, when it's famine, and you're starving.
Yeah. So it was slow, and then today I got a couple deals coming in the door, and I'm like, oh, this is why everyone has stress because you thought you were gonna have to quit the industry, and then you got a couple deals. You're like, all right, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
So
Same win. Same win. Same win.
Nice.
So,
all right. Did you book any trips recently?
no,
Pay
I
off any
think,
trips recently?
also no.
Did you go to Brigantine this weekend and play spike ball all weekend?
Yeah,
Oh,
I did
spike
that.
That's a
ball.
win.
Sick.
Yeah, big spike ball guy.
Do
Yeah.
you watch Shark Tank?
Yeah.
That's where Spike Ball made its debut.
Was it really? It went on Shark
I'm a
Tank.
huge Shark Tank fan. I remember like almost every single product they've ever had on the show or service. And I remember when the dude from Spike Ball came on. Watch that episode if you haven't on YouTube.
All right,
It's
I'm gonna
really
watch
good.
that now, yeah,
It
I'm
wasn't
gonna
that
start-
long ago, and he's really turned it into like
God.
such a great beach
crazy.
sport.
It's a pro sport.
Yeah,
you can
they
like
have
play it
tournaments.
professionally. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Pro is a little loose, right?
I know
People get
they're not
sponsored by Heineken.
They're
for it,
not
probably.
they're not no CrossFitters, but you know.
Oh, jeez. Okay. All right, let's get out of it before he goes on a tangent on CrossFit. Thank you very much, Tim, for coming in. Yeah. Again, plug your podcast. And,
Absolutely.
We'll tag you in everything that we post.
Yeah, Bricks and Risk. Check us out on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and Tim Garrity Team. Just search us on Google, and you can find what you want.
Hell yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
All
man.
right, man.
Absolutely.
Glad we had fun. All right, guys. Happy Friday. Have a good one.
Take care.
It's just newer while brothers drop down to their knees and make newer. Popsicle sticks race down the curb into the sewer.